We're going to take it out west. Let's go out to Las Vegas. And look, I know they play in an absolutely brutal division with Kansas City, with Denver, with the Chargers, right? But when you consider what Pete Carroll's had to come in and do, and for the sake of improvement, just find a way to make this team better than they were last year, it's pretty significant. You got Geno Smith as your quarterback, who's been a top 10 quarterback over the last 3 years. You've got, defensively, they're still figuring out the back seven, right? When you talk about bringing in a guy, say, like Jeremy Chin at safety, who maybe people don't think about as the coverage ace that's going to fix all the problems. Not going to fix all their problems, but talk about somebody who's a really good system fit. Where does he come from? Dan Quinn in Washington. Where does he go to? Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham here in Vegas. It just makes sense. The Raiders were in the 5th highest rate of cover 3 in the league last year. Jeremy Chin with the 8th highest coverage grade among safeties in cover 3. Just understands the curl flat area, how to run support from there, how to work down towards the line of scrimmage, allow a guy like Isaiah Pola-Mao to play back more in that free safety role, and they got to figure out what they have at corner. But then you look at this draft and you go, I think they really capitalized on what they got and how they filled their weaknesses in this draft. First of all, Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. There's a reason he went 6 overall. This is one of the best running back prospects we've had in the last decade. Last year in college football, led in rushing grade, led in yards after contact per attempt, led in missed tackles forced with 152, which is just ridiculous, and led in explosive runs. The Raiders were in the bottom 3 in the league in all of those categories for their running backs, dead last in rushing grade from their running backs. They were historically bad running the football last year, and we talked about they got some late-round options that could make it fun too, guys like J.J. Pegues and Tommy Mellott, whatever else they're going to do in the backfield. But at the end of the day, getting Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty and Jack Besh as a receiver in the 2nd round, this offense could be really dangerous because it's not a bad offensive line they have. They just never gave themselves a shot last year with their quarterback situation alone with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Now you've got major stability on offense. Is their secondary still a concern? Absolutely, it is. But they're trying to fill it in. A guy like Jeremy Chin, a guy like Darian Porter in the draft, who I think could start. They got Eric Stokes from Green Bay. They're trying to fill it in and just make it so it's not dead last in the league. I think it was the worst coverage grade they had as a team in the league in the last 5 years. So, I mean, as long as they're better than that, for the sake of talking about most improved, then you start improving on defense too. You get Max Crosby healthy. We know the D-line can do some things. Malcolm Kuntz as well, back for another year. But I just think you look at this Raiders team, and yeah, again, they play in a brutal division, so it is tough to project how many wins they're going to have, but they are going to look a whole lot better than they did, especially down the stretch last year.
Man, Drake in the chat saying trading draft capital for Geno ruined the Raiders offseason, in my opinion. I just don't agree. I think that Geno is an excellent ad for the Raiders. I think he actually makes them competent. Now, he said could have kept that pick, went with Will Howard, went with Shedeur Sanders, and presented some real upside. I think you get way more upside with Geno Smith. And I think that they were looking to make sure that, yeah, it's a long-term rebuild in certain ways on the roster. There's only some things you can do about it. But to acquire Geno, in my opinion, makes them competitive right away. And you know what? I will throw on John Spytek and Pete Carroll into everything that you just said there. In their offseason, major win. Getting Pete Carroll as their head coach, getting John Spytek as their general manager, I will give them credit for that. I'll talk about most improved teams. You talked about the most improved teams thing. This might be one of the most improved organizations because you brought these two guys in. I love the way that they handled free agency. I love the way that they navigated the draft. I would have loved for them to be able to retain Robert Spillane, but you can't win all of them. But I think the rest of the offseason from them made a ton of sense, and I think they'll be able to make up for it as the years go on. I love those two guys as the brain trust of that organization now, making a lot of the decisions. I'm very bullish on the Raiders moving forward.